startup, and we were a startup at that time, we were a startup journey, you will always have issues where cash flows are a problem. And so I think we're very proud of the fact that we never once delayed a employee's salary payment. So in the entire history of Trilegal, we may have delayed increments, but and whenever we've announced the increments, we've paid the increments with back effect. But we've never let an employee go without a month's salary, even if that meant we didn't take our profits or whatever. We always managed to do that. So I guess in those days you invest your own personal capital and your own personal well-being for the growth of the organization. Yes. But I think one of the most trying challenges that we had while Trilegal was being built was we had 3 senior lawyers who were not yet partners, or were just about to become partners, who for various reasons disagreed with the direction in which the firm was going, in their own personal interest. So for instance, the point was we changed our equity system, and the way in which people become partners was slightly changed. And they felt that they needed more respect, or they needed to be higher up
because they were senior lawyers,
than what we felt they should be. Yes. Now, the 5 of us who were the founders of the firm believe that we put in a lot in terms of our own capital. As I said, there are times when we didn't take salary, all of these things. We risked a lot, and we felt that while we recognized that these people could be partners, that risk capital had to get some value, and they disagreed. And the 3 of them just left. And so the big challenge for us at that point in time is the market recognizes these as our 3 senior lawyers who do a lot of the work for us. They potentially could take a lot of our clients. And so the challenge is, how do we recover from this? And then I think the thing you do in situations like this is you actually get on the phone, you call all your clients and all your customers and satisfy them that because these people have left, that doesn't mean the world is going to come down. That we're still there and we're still going to give you the attention that you need. And then you just rely on the name and reputation that you have built in the market. So they went on to set up a rival law firm. That law firm is still there, but while it's not like they're not successful as a law firm, I don't think it affected our success at all. And so people still recognize that this is a breakaway law firm from us. And by the way, that's the last partner that left us. So since then, no partner has left us, other than for life reasons. They have to do other things, but no one has left to join to set up a rival firm or things like that. So I think I guess the lessons that we learned out of that are that even though at the time the loss of a really senior person seems like a big challenge, if you focus on your core strengths and your core skills and what you bring to the table, you'll find that clients are not that fickle. So clients tend to stay with the firm for the values that the firm brings. And just because a few senior people go, there will always be some clients that will go, but just because a few senior people go, that doesn't mean that they will change their values or change their loyalties. And I think the second thing that we learned is that we've got to be very, very mindful of what is in the interests of everyone in the firm. Right now we have 45 partners, and it's hard to figure out what is in the interest of every one of the 45. These are all very different people. They're all people who want different things out of life. But we've evolved a system where we've sort of managed to get to that point where we're
cater to everyone's wants.
Well, so that's another problem. I don't think you should cater to everyone's wants, but I think we should uh, we should let people know that we're all of us working in this together. So sometimes you'll get what you want, sometimes you won't. But it is in the long-term interest of the firm. And so if at this point in time you're not getting what you want, that's okay, because it's in the long-term interest of the firm. And at a later point in time, there's something, maybe you'll get it and another partner won't. And that's the way to address these issues. Look, this industry, the legal industry, is one of the oldest industries. And it operates today in very much the same way as it has always operated. So if you look at innovation, if you look at change, this will be the last industry to get it. And it's been proved year on year. This is the industry which is the hardest when it comes to these sorts of things. So what drives me is to try and find ways to make this industry better. So we set up, and I'm talking about the Indian context. So when we set up, no professionally managed firm like this existed in the country. There were a lot of Indian firms that didn't work with this sort of mindset. In that, so what we said very clearly was it's complete transparency. Anyone who has merit can become a partner in the firm. We went on to say that there is no special place for founders. So just because I'm a founder doesn't mean I have the highest equity. We've got a system where every year every partner gets a little more equity, except the founders or the people who are at the top of that equity level. Yeah. So eventually, in time, there will be a number of people who have as much equity as I do. It's a very unusual thing from a shareholder perspective, but these are all professionals and they respect our seniority. But in time, their seniority is of equal value as my seniority. And so, they bring other strengths to the table. So just because I'm senior doesn't mean I should always have more profit than them. Yeah. And by setting up a model like this, we've inspired people to stay. Now there's at least one more person who's not a founder who is equal to us, and at least 2 or 3 more who are very close to becoming equal to us. There's no other law firm in India that's done this, that's given away equity in this manner. And I think that this is so this is, when I say there's no other law firm, there's none of the old law firms that have done this. But there are a number of newer law firms that are looking at these sorts of models because they realize that you've got to. It's like ESOPs in a corporate setup gives people some incentive to work in the company, because if the company does an IPO, then you can get you've got shares for a cheap price, and also you're contributing to the growth of the capital. Yeah. We can never do an IPO in a law firm. Law firm can't do an IPO because it's just not the way. Law firms, partnerships can't do an IPO. The legal industry doesn't do IPOs. So we had to come up with another way, and the way we've come up with is this: we sort of set up a equity system which allows us to give people what they need. So what drives me really is to come up with these sorts of models. And just to be clear, this is not a model that I invented. This is a model that many law firms use around the world. But what drives me is to try and find ways in which to change this Indian the legal industry, to try and make it slightly better than it was. I don't think the advice for entrepreneurs changes despite what age they are. I think entrepreneurs have you have to give the same advice to an entrepreneur regardless of whether you're a 50-year-old person who's worked for a company all his life and is now being an entrepreneur, or if you're a 18-year-old person who just wants to start. I think that the difference with millennials is that at this time in history, for the first time, you have so many options as a young person looking to do things, that your ability to get distracted or your ability to give up when things are getting a little tough is so much easier. Because I have people who work for me who are lawyers who sort of started doing it, and then one person said, "Look, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to become a photographer." Now, I'm not saying that he's a bad photographer. He may be a very good photographer, and that may really be his calling. And maybe he made a mistake going to law school. He should have instead gone to photography school. But we never had those options when we sort of were setting up this business. And so a lot of the dedication and the perseverance that we put into this whole business of entrepreneurship came because we had no choice. If we didn't do this, we would have stopped. There was no other option. Millennials today have many options. And so the concern I have is whether that perseverance that was not optional for us, whether that perseverance is as important for a millennial who's trying to make a name for himself, or whether he will give up because he has so many other options. And I think one of the biggest challenges with entrepreneurship is to push yourself beyond that point where every other instinct is telling you you've got to stop.
So the grit factor.
The grit factor is critical for entrepreneurship. And when you talk about failure, it is really, you've got to, when everything is lost around you and you think that this is a really bad idea, this thing that you set up, to have the ability to persevere with it and push on, because it's just above that horizon that success is. And if you stop short of the horizon because of all of the challenges that you have, then you'll never see that success. And the problem with people who give up is that it then becomes a counterfactual. You can never say whether you would have been successful if you persevered. It's only the people who persevere and achieve the success that you will then come and speak to and say, okay, how did you do it? And then they'll talk to you about it. But there may have been hundreds of thousands of people who were just short of them, but they gave up and went away. And I feel that the millennials have, it's not really the millennials' fault. I think at this point in time, there's a number of opportunities that the world gives us. How do we find that passion and stick with it till we make it a success? I think that is a huge challenge that you face today.
Yeah, so it's more of a mindset that millennials have to have.
Yeah, and I may be wrong. Look, I think there may be other ways of success. So if you speak to someone whose path to success has been grit and pushing it when things didn't look so rosy, then for us there's no other option. And so when we look at millennials giving up and becoming photographers, we'll be like, look, you just have to put more effort into this and you'll become a great lawyer.
Yeah.
But maybe that's wrong, and maybe the success today is actually trying 20 different things and figuring out which your passion is. Maybe I should have become a photographer and not become a lawyer. Maybe if I put that grit and determination into a photographer, maybe I'll make a lot of money, or whatever the milestone of success is. But I think if you ask me for advice to a millennial, this would be my advice, because it's what's worked for me. It is possible that success can come without grit and without determination, but that I don't know how to do it, and that's my advice. I think you will need to put whatever you choose to do. There will be failures, and you need to persevere over that. You can't give up with the first failure that comes your way. And I think that's true regardless of who you are.
So millennials have to accept that failure is a part of your journey to success, and you have to persevere over that.
And not only is a part of your journey, I think failure actually, a lot of us are blessed by the fact that we observe others, see their failures and try not to make those mistakes. But most of us only ever do that when it happens to us. So you can see your friend who tried to do this and suffered. But until it actually happens to you, you can't actually chalk that down as an experience. And so I think for the vast majority of us, we have to push past failure as opposed to giving up with the first failure that we have. So within the profession, it's it's hard to find, or it's hard for me at least to identify a single mentor that has all the characteristics that I look up to. But there were many individual mentors who had characteristics that I looked up to, and or rather that I aspired to build into myself. So my first boss was just the most brilliant business development person that I know. Probably still is. He would go on a trip, and he was a very good lawyer. But while I was working with him, his skill at being able to convince clients to trust their problems to him was something that I had not seen anyone do, and that's something that I look up to. It's not my style. My style of business development is really to become an expert in a particular area, so that it's well known that if you want advice in this area, then you need to go to this person. But that ability to get clients and to give you have that much confidence in you that they can give you the work, that I thought was remarkable. And then there were other people who just with their sheer so the legal profession is a profession that requires a lot of method. It requires a lot of process. We don't think it, but most successful practitioners have a very good process workflow. So you've got to be methodical and organized if you want to be a good lawyer, because you're dealing with multiple cases, you've got multiple deadlines, and you've got to get it all out. There's no, the judge is not going to wait for you. He may give you one adjournment, but sometimes he won't give you the adjournment, so you've got to be ready for it. Yeah. So you have to have a method, and that whole you only have so many hours in the day, and that whole getting things into process, working so that you can actually deliver things on time and at quality, is another thing that one of my early seniors actually drove into. I mean, the very first agreement that I did for him came back covered with red because he marked up everything. I was so embarrassed that I had not thought of all of those things. But that attention to detail is actually what now all the people who work for me say that I do the same thing. So I'm impossible to please, and I tell them, look, don't feel bad about it. But if you give me an agreement that I drafted myself, I will cover it with the same markup, because a document can never be perfect, or a work product can never be perfect. You have to keep working on it until it becomes better and better.
Yeah, there's no such thing as perfection.
No such thing as perfection. You can go as close to it as possible. And quite frankly, sometimes clients don't really care for it to be that perfect. They just want, they just want advice and they just want to carry on. And a lot of experience is really to know where that balance is. But the need for perfection, the need to actually focus and achieve things in a methodical manner, that's another life skill that I learned very, very early on. And for most of my life, I've been working to squeeze more out of my day than I did the previous day. That doesn't mean I don't watch movies and I read my books and all of that. That's another, and I still don't think I'm there. I think my aspiration would be to get to the point where I can actually push it, so that I can achieve as much as I can out of the day. So to me, those were. There wasn't any one person that did that, but there were. These were characteristics that I wanted to imbibe into my life. There is a book on the practice of law. So it is. It's called The Professional Services Firm by David Meister. Now that is a book which broke down for me this whole mystery of the way a law firm works. Because we think the law firm is like a corporate, it's not. We think a law firm is like a single, proprietorship, it's not. It's a strange combination of all of these things. And lawyers have the biggest egos. And so all the partners, you've got people who are type A personalities trying to work together in a coordinated way. It's like herding cats. So this book, I've been in management of this firm for quite some time, and at times I felt completely distraught at the way in which things are going. We're not able to achieve anything. We seem to be taking one step forward and two steps back all the time. All of these policies that we say everyone sort of signs up to, says yes it is, and then don't abide by it when they go back. And then this book sort of explained to me that just broke down all of these principles. They said, look, this is the way it is. This is the reason why it is. You've got a bunch of type A people. They're all profit centers. They're responsible for generating profit. They will do it their way. And to try and get them to work like an organization, where there's some CEO that says do this and everyone stands up and says at attention and says yes sir, is never going to happen. And so that book really helped me understand the way in which a law firm works, and I think with that it's helped me shape some of my behaviors even in leadership. So I think we've all got to look out for these sorts of books, these sorts of insights that will give you some help.
And you understand the industry better.
Yeah.
And,
no, well, I think even though you live in the industry, you are sometimes blinded to what your biases are about the industry. And when you come to an issue, saying, look, this is how I would have reacted, assuming that you are representative of everyone in the industry, and you're not. And so it's important to sort of step back a bit. Some of these people are professionals who step back and study many law firms and have got a deep understanding of the industry. The other thing I recommend to anyone is to sign up for an executive education course. So no matter how old you are, all the top business schools have executive education courses for any profession.
Like Harvard.
Like Harvard. So we went for the Harvard Executive Leadership in Law Firms course. And this is a course that the managing partners of the top firms in the world come to. And these are people in their late 50s and 60s who you would think, because they're running these big law firms, they have all the experience. But why they come to that is because they want to see what other people are doing. And some of them actually want to come to see what someone like I am doing in a smaller law firm, in a country where the market is not yet open. Because they are so used to doing things their way that they're not seeing these new ways that we're using. So that's another, I strongly recommend that any entrepreneur invests in getting something like this, because it is very, it's also a way of keeping current with what the latest trends are in business, in management, in leadership, and it's a way of sharing best practices with each other. So that's the other thing I strongly recommend. Of course, reading, I can't recommend it more. You may not get anything out of a book, but even if you get just one piece, one nugget of information,
it can lead to something.
It can lead to something, and it can change your life. And you just have to be open to these suggestions. I think reading a book and going into the preconception that this is a book that's related to an American audience, or this is a book that's related to a different industry, is irrelevant. Because if you pick up something that applied in the US or in the mining industry and try to apply it to you, and if you're smart about it, you will be able to do it.
Yeah.
So that I think is you're reading, going to these executive education courses, and keeping yourself open to new ideas is critical.